Hey guys, Sora here, and welcome back to another bar video. It's been a while since my last upload, but this one's just going to be a quick one on a guide on how to micro. In particular, we're going to be talking about the FUG units. If you're on the Discord, you'll probably know why. Yeah, so let's get into it. So first of all, this is going to be a video aimed more at beginners to intermediate players, advanced players, and people who've been playing this game for a while. You probably know all this stuff already. Without further ado, let's get into it. So what is line moving? Well, it's simply dragging a line instead of using single point clicks to move your army around. Now, there's a couple of crucial things you will want to do when you're fighting an equally sized army. So first of all, keep in mind that this game is not a type of game where you can overcome everything with just insane superior micro. Doesn't work like that. You'll still need to have a relatively equally sized army to fight any enemies. So here I have 5v6. This is probably going to be a pretty tough fight, even if my opponent does nothing, leave it on default roam settings on the units, and I micro, right? So it's not like you're going to be able to always kill double the amount of enemy units just because you know how to micro. Knowing how to micro is sort of like the starting point. You sort of need to know this to play at a higher level. And in general, if you want to elevate your gameplay, but you feel like you're just losing, even though you watch a replay back and your eco is comparable or even better than your opponent, but you're still losing these fights, and this is when you probably want to actually tackle the micro aspect. So what is micro? Was essentially just how to fight with units. It sounds kind of dumb, but yeah, it's not something that gets talked about very often. A lot of people just like to focus on build content, like how to build your eco and whatever, but I'm going to talk about exclusively micro today. So without further ado, let's jump into it. So there's a couple of things you need to know about micro. So first of all, with bot units like the FUG, they have this weird property where if you're shooting something, I'm just going to target the ground here. If you change directions, the turret arms move with it. So I'm just going to do another demonstration here. So they're all going to fire, and they're about to fire the next shot. I turn, and you can see how the turret arms are going the other way to where I'm putting the movement endpoint things, what do we call them? And when that happens, it turns the turret arms to the other direction, and the unit has to manually re-aim the turret and fire. This causes a much lower DPS output, and you can see that these units are barely shooting at all if I just keep spinning them around. So the goal of the micro is to move as much as possible from side to side, to dodge as many shots as possible without actually getting that issue where they're turning too much whilst they want to shoot and it doesn't come out. So essentially you want to go side to side like this, but slow enough to the point where the thugs are still able to shoot on time. So normally thugs shoot every 1.73 seconds. So basically every 1.73 seconds you want to make sure you're not changing directions at that point as they're firing. What I like to do is actually visually recognize that they've shot and then change direction right after they shoot, like so. We're going to have a little demonstration there. You can see I'm moving side to side perfectly fine, but they're not stopping their fire at any point. Like so. And you can see just how many shots I'm actually dodging with my thugs there, and at this point I can just run in because I have more HP than them, and end the fight there. As you can see. So that's effectively what the micro is going to look like. You want to assemble your units in a line and then sort of move left to right and dodge a lot of the shots until you're confident enough where, okay, the enemy is just sort of like dying now, so you can just sort of go in and win. The less units there are you're fighting with, the more effective actually dodging is. So when you have like a 20v20, honestly, don't even bother moving from side to side that much, because it's not important. Your units are going to get shot at, but when there's like lower numbers, when there's like 5v5, 3 units, that's when like actually knowing how to do this correctly and not, stopping your units from shooting but still dodging a significant amount of shots actually becomes very important. Because you see there, I was actually losing the fight at one point, right? When it was like 4v4 or something like that, but then it got down to 3v3 and I was dodging virtually every single shot that the other thugs were shooting at mine. And that's effectively the effect that the micro has on the units. But like I mentioned, dodging is not feasible when you have larger army sizes. You can still prevent some damage, but when you have a larger army size, so let's say like I just made 20 thugs here. When you have something like 20 thugs, the goal is actually just to spread out your units more than actually trying to move them. And the goal is to not get splash damage to death. And that's your main goal when you have these larger army sizes. And I'm just gonna line them up here just to show you what I mean. So I've got 20 thugs here. I'm just gonna line them up straight from the factory. A little bit wider maybe. Maybe just a bit wider. There we go, right. So these are my 20 thugs, right? Thugs can shoot over each other. So you can do something like this if you really want to. 2 rows. And it kind of like works okay. But mainly you want like one line. You want one line of thugs. That's pretty much the main thing you want. Now, like I said, you don't want them to be bunching, so realistically you don't even want them in 2 rows. But effectively there's 2 commands or 2 ways of controlling your units that you'll want to know when you're fighting with larger army sizes. The first one is how to bunch them up. So this is like trying to make your army actually narrower in like one sort of narrow line. This can be useful at avoiding like just general radius, so like maybe there's like a gap in the static defenses that you want to go through, for example. Generally, I wouldn't say it's too useful to bunch your units up. It's not that practical or needed really. But the other thing is how to actually spread out your units, and this is the way that I recommend. So what I want to drill into your head is basically, if you want to bunch up, use a close point command like so. You can see how they're super bunched up now. And then for actually spreading out your units, you want to drag a wide line far away from where you actually are. So usually what I'll do is, if I want to spread out, I just scroll out, zoom out, and then drag a really big line. What this does is it spreads them out faster, because you can see if I just drag a line to where I actually want to go, right, this is where I actually want them to go, right? They're just basically staying in line, they're not really spreading out. But if I do this instead, you'll see they start spreading out a lot more. And then obviously you're going to want to adjust. Some of them might be falling behind. You can do so by manually selecting the group. And then once they're back in formation, you can press your control group and sort of command them all at the same time again. And to be honest, in bigger fights, I wouldn't even recommend setting target necessarily. The one downside of setting target is that you're all shooting the same thing, and it makes it easier for things like con turrets and res bots and commanders to repair that 1 damage unit. So it is something to keep in mind. It's not always necessarily better to set target. I'll say if you have the superior numbers in force, don't set target. It sounds kind of stupid, but it's a lot harder to resbot micro repair like one like 10 units than it is to just, you know, stick it on repeat repair on one unit and just get the resbots to follow them around. So in the case of you are going to win anyway and you don't need the extra DPS upgrade on each individual unit that you would get from set target, just don't set target and you know, just go for the kill that way. That's what I recommend. So essentially set target for DPS, and then if they have lots of repair going on, then don't set target, basically, is what I'm trying to say here. And we're just gonna chill here. So that's basically the main thing about microing thugs. You wanna go close when you're trying to bunch them up, close command, and then if you wanna spread them out, go wide and go far. Pretty much as far as you can in that direction. And if you're trying to just move side to side, you can just use single point commands. There's nothing wrong with that. Just don't do it too quickly, otherwise you won't shoot with the actual unit. There is one more thing I want to mention, which is vehicles. Vehicles are a little bit different. Now, obviously, I think most people will know that vehicles have significant turn time, so as you can see, if I just do the same thing like I was doing with the bots, it's not really moving at all. It takes a long time for it to turn, right? For most vehicle units, this is going to be the case. Look, I'm going to put it at basically 180, and you can see this like little turn it's doing. It means vehicles are not necessarily going to be as agile and as good at dodging shots as like the bot equivalent's going to be. But there is one cool thing that the vehicle does do that the bots can't, which is the vehicle doesn't care about how often you switch sides. So if I put ground fire, you can see how the body of the vehicle is moving separately to the turret. The turret absolutely does not care where the main body of the unit is turning. It will still keep firing at the maximum fire rate. So you can pretty much turn the vehicle as much as you want, almost, and it won't particularly matter. It will still fire at a maximum fire rate. This gets to be less true with units that have a greater disparity between turret turn rate and the actual vehicle turn rate. So if I take the Tsar, for example, the Tsar has a worse turning circle than the Brute, for sure. However, it's not as slow as the turret. So you can see how slow the turret is. Right, this is why you can get that meme where like one tick just sort of runs circles around the Tsar infinitely without getting shot. It's because the turret spin rate is so slow. But even then, because the Tsar without XP has a 3.5 reload time, you're probably not too worried about the turret getting messed up by the vehicle bodies turning. But yeah, that's the main difference between vehicle and bots. They're not as capable at switching sides, like movement-wise, but their separate turret means they don't care about how they're turning at all, or how often they're turning at all. The turret will still fire at maximum fire rate, right? They don't need to readjust randomly, which is nice. The other things to just quickly gloss over, I'm not gonna talk too much about the other units. So for example, like V-Rockets, right? There's not too much to talk about. They shoot a thing. They don't really like care about which way they're facing, and they can shoot a thing. That's what I'm gonna say, really. Never, if you're trying to hit moving units, never use automatic target because you won't ever hit anything. You're gonna need to lead your shots manually for this one. And to a certain degree, rocket bots I'll also recommend leading, especially if your opponent also knows how to micro from side to side. You're going to need to sort of read when he's going to switch directions, and that's when where you want to shoot the rocket. So I'm just gonna make some rocket bots here. So if my opponent's like moving side to side from like here to here, I will simply wait until he's hit here. He's gonna turn around, and then I'll probably aim somewhere like here, right? Just to lead the shot a bit, because I know he probably won't go back this way to attempt to dodge the shots. This is not going to be something that's like uber necessary for most cases, because the meta maps right now, right, Supreme, like you have 2 players covering this space. It's really not large enough for most of this tech to be like useful. But if you're like, you know, playing small teams, you're playing Rotato, then you might find this more useful. I think with rocket bots especially, I would actually just recommend, if you're just kiting anyway and you're not in any sort of time constraint to kill what's in front of you, don't set target, right? It's much easier to just I can't do it because it's on the enemy team, but it's much easier to do line set target than it is to sort of set a single target. And you'll see what I mean by this in just a sec there. So if I set a single point, right, you can see how all these rockets are traveling in a cone to that one direction. But if I set it as a line instead, it's sort of like a volley of fire, which is much harder for the enemy to dodge all of them, right? There's like constant lines of threats that's just going on, and it's much harder to dodge than something like a cone, which is more like this. Right, you can see how you're really only threatening this, like this little area with your rockets, whereas with the same 5 units, you can be threatening like all of this. And it's just something to think about when you're using rocket bots. Set target is not always the best. Set target is what you use when you want to DPS a particular target down, but when there's large numbers, you actually don't want to use set target sometimes, just because it's harder to repair micro if you just sort of spray damage everywhere. Which is a bit weird sounding, admittedly, because most people will just tell you to always use set target. I will also probably say to nearly always use set target, but there are these weird matchups where when you're like using rocket bots against something that can actually move out of the way, I wouldn't use set target. But anyway, this short video has gotten very long, so I'm going to finish it here. Have a nice one, guys. Feel free to drop a like and a comment if you have anything else to say or add to the video. And I will see you in Beyond All Reason. Bye-bye.